the Haunted Texas series is taking over Talk About the Hill Country. We will be here every weekday morning from October 21st to October 31st. If you miss a story, hear it on Halloween night starting at 6 p.m. The broadcast is being carried on KNAF AM 910 and KFAN 107.9 Texas Rebel Radio. Our sponsor is the Mason County Historical Society. These eerie, sometimes gory, and always fascinating haunted Texas tales are being brought to us by historians and educators from the Texas Historical Commission, the Texian Blog, and the Texas Center at Schreiner University. These Texas tales are true to life and death. So listener discretion is advised. Now settle back and enjoy HC Broadcasting's presentation of Haunted Texas. So welcome to our Haunted Texas Stories with Ben Friberg, and you are one of our main storytellers. Actually, you are the main storyteller for our Haunted Texas Stories. We've also had one from the Texas Historical Commission, and it has been fascinating not only hearing the breadth of the kinds of stories you're able to come across, but how you tell the stories. How did you get into your interest in Texas folklore and then the whole storytelling ability that you have?
Well, I first became interested in Texas folklore when I was a kid, and I really loved short stories like Washington Irving's, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, of course, Rip Van Winkle, stories about Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan, Pecos Bill, and all that. I loved those as a kid, and they would show us the Disney cartoons in elementary and that sort of thing. And so I read the original stories, and I was a very heavy reader from early on. So that really, learning about those characters and those stories really jump-started me into being interested in folklore in general. And then, of course, when I became very, very interested in Texas history right around 1986, because that was when the sesquicentennial happened.
Oh, yes.
And my mom and my dad took me around to all these places in Texas that had to do with the Texas Revolution or Texas independence. And I found out that I had ancestors who had been involved in some of that at the Alamo and San Jacinto. And so I immediately became very interested in Texas history as a result. And that's never gone away and has only intensified over the years. So that love of U.S. folklore, world folklore mixed with Texas, and then I began to research and get into Texas folklore.
And how do you find the stories? Like if someone is wanting to start their own explorations into Texas folklore, what's a good way to start doing that?
Easiest way really is to get on Facebook and look up the Texas Folklore Society. They have a Facebook page and they have regular posts on there. And the society was started way back in the early 1900s. I can't remember exactly when, but it was like 1910 or 1915, maybe even a little bit before that. And they have had publications come out over the years. One of their main editors early on and founders was J. Frank Dobie. And I read a lot of his books too. You can find, I think, most of their older books on the Portal to Texas History, which is a historical storage digital collection from the University of North Texas. And you can go there for all sorts of Texas history, but if you look up the Texas Folklore Society on the Portal to Texas History page, you'll find some of their older publications that they have scanned in that you can read through. You can also go on Amazon or wherever you buy your books, and they will have some of their more recent publications still in print on there. And those are a good one-stop shop place where you can get a wide assortment of different Texas tales that have been collected over the years. And so I started collecting those and researching and finding the older out-of-print collections that they have. And that's where I've found a lot of my stories that I've retold this past week.
That's so cool. And if you're interested, if Texas folklore gets you interested in Texas history, how can you tell the difference between those two types of things? It's obviously in Texas history, you're not necessarily going to hear the ghost part of things, but these are things that have actually happened within Texas history. They're actually events that have happened, but they have an overlay to them. So how do you start sorting that out as someone who's both a folklorist and someone who's a historian?
Are you talking about like reading a folk tale and going, this might be actual history?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it helps to already kind of have a breadth of knowledge about Texas history. That way you can go, okay, this version does not match up with the known facts, you know. And a lot of Texas history has been interwoven with Texas has become folklore pretty early on. You know, there's lots of legends about the Alamo and San Jacinto and things like the Yellow Rose of Texas and things that are the legend is not the factual historical record. And so it's very helpful to already have that foundation in Texas history to know, okay, this didn't happen. Or, you know, it also is just, if you read enough of these, you can know, you can tell that there's a pattern here of a more traditional story. Mm-hmm. A lot of the settlers to Texas and to the United States brought their old world folklore with them. Oh. English folklore, German folklore, Irish, whatever whatever may be. And so they would just translate those into a Texas version. Oh. So, yeah, there's different archetypes throughout world folklore, and there's and they just transferred them to Texas historical characters, or basically retold the exact same story, but then they moved it to Laredo, or they moved it to El Paso, or they moved it to
fun. I love that.
It's like the story of La Llorona, which is a very popular Mexican folk tale that has its origins maybe in Aztec history, but it also has origins in Spanish folklore, and every major town in Texas has some sort of version of that.
Now, that one is that the one, the woman who comes back to get her kids?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
so she's like the Medea of
exactly.
Culture.
And then you could go back to Medea. But then the Aztecs, I'm pretty sure, had kind of their own version. It's one of those eternal things that the human mind always brings up. You know, a woman who, because of some bad life decisions, ends up killing her children. And then she spends the rest of eternity trying to find those children. I mean, that, like you said, that's in Greek mythology, and it's in most other world mythologies, because there are characters like that in real life, tragically. And so, I mean, that's a universal human thing. Wow. Anywhere where there's a Hispanic population, you have a La Llorona story of some kind, because they take those traditions with them, and then just transplant them to wherever they're living now.
I just think it's fascinating how you have been able to combine that. Now, you have your own blog, that's the Texian Blog. What is that? Is that a combination of your interest in history and your interest in folklore? Like, how can people learn more about that blog and get more off of that blog?
Well, I started the blog as just a place to put some of my amateur writing that I was having fun with, and writing down my thoughts about Texas. And some of my friends had blogs, and I liked reading blogs, so I wanted to kind of try my own. And then I started getting into podcast producing for a time, and I called that the Texan. And so I basically posted my podcast to that blog spot too.
So you've been posting your podcast to your, well, now you have like 6 or 7 more that you could post to your podcast, and certainly link to us. We're going to put these on our YouTube channel. They're so amazing, and we'll be playing them Halloween night starting at 6 o'clock every hour, and then half hour.
Okay,
so
great.
People can re-listen to them and then find them on the YouTube channel as well. What are the kinds of things when people go, so is it a combination of your blog now and a podcast, or what can people do?
It is. I've posted my writings on there. there. I've posted some of my Texas folklore stories, because what I started doing is marrying my love of Texas history with folklore and taking traditional folklore and then doing my own version of it. Ooh. Because folklore really, as it's passed down, it doesn't stay the same. Mm-hmm. Every storyteller adds their own little something to it. And so I've taken some of these that I have found in places like the Texas Folklore Society publications or in other spots, and then I make my own version. I turn them up to 11. And
yes, you definitely do. That's been so much fun.
And then I also mix in historical facts. The conceit is to act as if these folklore stories were actually true. And so I make sure to set them in a very specific time. And then I interweave actual Texas historical facts so that it's as if the story is actually a true story.
Very cool.
So I change it from something that might be a nebulous, once upon a time, something happened to, this only child who was the most beautiful girl in the world sort of thing, and turn it into she was a German immigrant in this specific colony and in things like that. So
it really does. It really lends that depth to it as well. And as someone who grew up watching movies and listening to radio programs, the way my family did that is we would use that as a starter to do, like, was this really a real story or not a real story? And then you could go look it up and try and find different versions and the actual historical people. And I love that aspect that you've given to it, because it makes me so curious about all of your stories that I have to go back and go, okay, I'm going to spend some time going, okay, so where was this, and were there really people like this, or it's such a great teaser for both history and for folklore.
Yeah, most of the ones I've done this time around, or just in general, do have basis in fact. And on the ones that I've written and published on my blog, I've started putting at the end a little section I call the fact of the matter.
Oh, neato.
And then I explain where I took liberties, and then also, no, this may sound crazy, but this character was actually real. Or, this colony that you've never heard of that I mentioned in this story was a real colony, and what I said happened there actually happened. And so, but then I'm honest about, like, if we have no evidence for this, but that's the story, so I have to leave that in there. But, who knows? Yeah. I mean, just because we don't have evidence for it doesn't necessarily mean it didn't happen.
This is true.
We just haven't found the evidence.
This is true. Is it absence of evidence? Is it evidence of absence?
Correct.
Like
yeah, so I have fun with that. And that was my blog, and I've also started, because Substack is a new thing,
yes,
I've basically started transferring my writings from my blog over to my Substack, and I'll be moving my podcast over to my Substack. Podcast, I had to take a break in 2020 because you had COVID, and I interviewed people in person, and then my dad passed away, and so there was a lot of family issues there, and it just kind of went off the rails. And then I got my new job at the Texas Center, and we keep super busy over there. And so I hope to next year start the podcast back up.
Oh, that's great.
And so I'll be posting those on the blog spot, but I'll also be posting them on my Substack. And I'm hoping, since Substack seems to be the new thing, that I'll be able to get a new audience there as well.
That'll be cool. Well, you're going to get an audience from this. So what could you tell them what your Substack address is, or where they can look it up so that they can continue to
It should be
see your content?
It should be the Texian.
Okay.
I try to keep everything the same. That's kind of my online persona, is the Texian. And I have a Facebook page for that. That's what my blog spot's called, and that's what my Substack's called. So they should be able to find it that way, but I'll be able to give you a link for that too.
Okay, perfect. Well, and we we will keep you busy as you want it to be, because I know you've been working on the scripts for the 65 Texas videos that the Texas Center is putting out next year. And actually, I think Don is putting out, letting people know what's happening within each one of the
60 lessons.
60 lessons. Yeah.
250 videos.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, that's right. 250 videos. Oh my word. That is astounding. So I know you're working hard on that. And so I'm actually going to ask you a quick question. As a writer, how do you manage to bring yourself back to the page or to the screen time after time to do this? What helps you do that?
Usually someone lighting a fire under my other people who like to write will know that it can be extremely difficult to make yourself sit down and write, whether it's longhand on a notebook pad or just typing at your computer. So, if someone says, hey, can you help us out with some stories, then I'll actually get down and do it because someone has given me a task to do. And then sometimes if I can think ahead long enough and go, I want to turn out a story for this Halloween, I'll start working on it piecemeal like 3 months before so I can make sure that I have it done by then. So I have a little bit of self-discipline there, but it can be difficult because it's too easy to go, well, I'm just going to watch some TV, or I need to cook dinner, or I'm just too tired. And, that is the struggle of all writers, is the only way to be a writer is to write. And the eternal struggle is to actually make yourself write. That's what keeps most people from becoming the writer that they want to be, because you just have to write and write and write and write and write.
Yeah, and you can tell they're very tight, the stories that you put together. And so I will put out anytime you want to write for us, you are welcome to, and we may ask you occasionally, you're welcome to say no, but we may ask you occasionally for the different holidays and stuff, because this has been so much fun having these folklore stories for people and being able to share them as part of our programming. It's just been so delightful, and we've gotten such good feedback. So excited about it.
Yeah, I would love to. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'd love to do more for Christmas.
Yes,
or
we love Christmas.
There might be some that are attached to other major holidays. I'm sure there's some Easter ones from the Fredericksburg area, of course.
Yeah.
What is the history of the Easter bonfires that they had here? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just it all depends on the culture and where they move to. There's a lot of very interesting stories down in South Texas, around Goliad and Refugio and places like that because of the Irish who moved in. That was a large Irish colony. So the folklore in that area has a nice Irish twist to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because of that history.
Oh, we may actually ask you some of that for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, and the other is, I was going to ask, I was watching something about folklore, and it was saying folklore is always ongoing. Just as you said, people kind of take the stories and make them their own. Are there any new stories that you're seeing as folklore coming together in this modern era that sort of tell the story of Texas or different, just even across the board of different kinds of themes that you're seeing?
That's a good question. I tend to focus more on old stuff because that's where my real love of Texas history lies, is kind of that anything before the automobiles replaced the horse. I tend to joke is that after that the romanticism is dead, and I tend to lose interest.
Well, these were about Dracula, and they were saying like the folklore was based on movies now.
Yeah, that's true.
That comes out of those.
Hollywood very much developed a lot of what we think of as folklore for things like Dracula, the rules of vampires. They all come from the book, and then from the many movie adaptations that came afterwards. Werewolf folklore, the what we think of as werewolf folklore, almost all of it came from the Wolfman from the 1940s, and then the movies after that. If you read actual werewolf folklore from the old world before that, it has the rules are completely different.
It's true. It's very true.
So, I would agree. I would think a lot of modern folklore is our sources entertainment, film, TV. It kind of develops its own folklore. That's unless I can put an actual historical twist on it or something like that, I don't get as interested in the modern folklore. I guess, the Marvel superheroes, the comic book superheroes are a type of folklore because there are a new version of mythology.
Oh, that's true.
Instead of Hercules, you have Captain America or Wonder Woman, Superman, and all the other great heroes of myth are now replaced by comic book heroes.
That's true.
So that could be a also considered our new folklore.
True. I love the whole concept of what you're doing, of putting the folklore into that, sort of giving that historical brevity to it, a weight to it, so that it gives that sense of place to it, so it makes it feel so much more real, which is why so many of them are so cool.
Well, thanks. But yeah, that's what the thing is that a lot of them really did happen in some sense of the word. The Josiah Wilbarger story, as far as I can tell, did happen.
Wow.
I mean, his brother, who wrote a book later that became very influential called Indian Depredations in Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He that's where the story first saw print. And he says, I can attest to it because this guy's my brother, and he told us a story, and that's what happened with our sister. And the woman who had the dream about Wilbarger that ended up saving his life, he said she's an honest woman, well known for not making stuff up, and she said that's exactly what happened. So as far as we know, that story actually happened. The story of the Headless Horseman of South Texas, that's kind of up in the air, but the story was originally told by Creed Taylor, one of the characters in the story, to J. Warren Hunter, who was the father of J. Marvin Hunter, who printed Frontier Times down in Bandera. And so it first saw print in Frontier Times back in the early 20th century. And family members of Creed Taylor said that, no, that wasn't made up. Whatever he said is actually what happened. And so it's gone through a lot of renditions over the years, but the basic original story could be true.
That is fascinating.
So, yeah, it's some of those are the ones I have the most fun with, are ones where there may be a lot of exaggeration in there, but some of it may actually be true. Or with the haunted railroad. I mean, my buddy, when he shared that story with me, I looked it up, and there really was a really horrible accident there.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that killed a lot of people.
Wow.
And so, which I'd never heard of. And so that's the fun for me too in researching these, is I'm learning more history that I never knew anything about. And so that's kind of why I continue to do that style, where I'm marrying in, actual facts with the folklore, because that way you can enjoy a good story, but then you're also learning about Texas history at the same time.
Thank you for helping us out with our Haunted Texas Stories series, and I can't wait to do some other things with you.
Yeah.
And I guess one more time, it's the Texian Blog. Mm-hmm. Then also, of course, they can find out other kinds of writing that you're doing at the Texas Center.
Yes.
As you look at all those 250 scripts, what else? Where else can they find you along with the Texian Blog? Where other writings of yours can they find?
It's the Texian Blog spot, and it's the Texian or El Texian on Substack. Okay. Also on Facebook. I've got the Texian on Facebook. Okay. And at the Texas Center, go ahead and get on YouTube and follow the Texas Center at Schreiner University. We keep a pretty updated YouTube channel where we'll try to put in stuff every couple of weeks or so, and we cover the whole gamut. We've got historical videos, cultural videos, where did chicken fried steak come from?
No way.
Why, the history of the Longhorn, and focusing in on different heroes, veterans from World War I and II, And we've got a video about Admiral Nimitz of, local fame, even though I will say that he was born in Fredericksburg, but he grew up in Kerrville.
Yeah.
So, went to Tivy High School and everything. So, but anyway, we have a lot of different videos, a wide range of subjects. So if you love to scroll on YouTube or just sit on one channel and push play and let it go through, Don, our director, has several historical presentations that he's given. One of our most popular was when he talked about the German Civil War history in Fredericksburg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's been a big hit, lots of views, and he talks about the Battle of the Nueces and a lot of the strife that the Germans had to deal with because most of them were Union supporters or at least suspected of being Union supporters.
Yeah.
And so he goes into a lot of detail on that. So, I mean, anything that is Texas history related or Texas culture related, that's what we're trying to produce. And this video series we're doing, it'll be useful, wonderful really for homeschoolers, public school teachers, charter school, whatever, anyone who's wanting to learn more about Texas history. And we've written it to where a precocious 7th grader can get it. And they're also good for high school and early college too. And he really writes them to where they're real, like telling a story. And I work on the video end of the production. And once we're done with them early next year, I mean, nothing like it has ever been done. It's going to be 250 videos covering the history of Texas from the dinosaurs to modern day.
Wow.
And so it's going to be really helpful for anyone who's wanting to learn more about our state.
That's so exciting. And you're doing the full gamut of storytelling from production side all the way to learning the things you do for your podcast and what you've done for us. That's so exciting that people can put that together. And again, thank you so much for being a part of our Haunted Texas stories.
I loved it.
And we will hit you up whenever you have the energy and the time to do for maybe those Christmas stories. Sound really
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right.
Thank you. And this has been our Haunted Texas Stories version of Talk About the Hill Country. If you'd like to be on one of our regular Talk About the Hill Countries, give us a call at 837-997-2197. Email us at knafnews@gmail.com. Give us a mail, an actual snail mail at P.O. Box 311, or stop by our studios at 304 East San Antonio Street. Attention Hill Country residents. Join the Mason County Historical Society for our annual meeting on November 22nd at 6 p.m. in the Stribley Room of the Mason Library. This year, we're thrilled to welcome geologist Brian Hunt from UT Austin, who will take us on a fascinating journey through the geology of Mason County. Discover how our landscape evolved from ancient seas to the era of dinosaurs and even mammoths. Bring your rock samples for identification and enjoy refreshments as we delve into our local history together. Everyone's welcome, no membership required. For more information, visit us on Facebook or at masonmuseums.org. Let's find out together what's under our feet. Don't miss this enriching experience with your community. This has been a special presentation by HC Broadcasting, our Haunted Texas series for the Halloween season. First, thank you to our presenters, Ben Friberg of the Texian Blog and the Texas Center at Schreiner University, and Shannon Smith of the Texas Historical Commission and Fort Martin Scott. A huge shout out to our sponsor, the Mason County Historical Society. If you love local Texas history, be sure to participate in the Mason County Historical Society's annual meeting on November 22nd at 6. It'll be held at the Stribling Room in the Mason County Library. Find out what's under your feet, geologically speaking. Check out their website at masonsmuseum.org. Want to get on the regular calendar for Talk About the Hill Country? Call 830-997-2197. Email knafnews@gmail.com. Mail to P.O. Box 311 in Fredericksburg, or stop by the studio at 304 East San Antonio Street. Hope you enjoyed your Haunted Texas.